Good evening, I'm Diana Skye and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. Beginning midnight tonight, Poland is temporarily reinstating border controls with Germany and Lithuania. The move, announced by Prime Minister Donald Tusk, follows similar steps by other EU countries amid rising concerns over illegal migration. Now we'll go live to our reporter at the Polish-German border in Zgorzelec with the latest details. And more on that in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Donald Trump may be toughening his stance on Vladimir Putin. Elon Musk is shaking up U.S. politics. And a Polish town wins reinstatement of German language funding. From midnight tonight, Poland will temporarily reintroduce border checks with Germany and Lithuania. Prime Minister Donald Tusk made the announcement following similar moves by other EU nations, including Belgium and Germany, amid rising worries over illegal migration. Let's go live now to our reporter, Zuzanna Jurek, who is at the Polish-German border in Zgorzelec, awaiting the border controls to take effect. Good evening, Zuzanna. Now, do tell us, what is it looking down there on the ground, and what's really the reasoning behind this decision?
Good evening, Diana. So as you mentioned, the border checkpoints will be reinstated at midnight tonight. The justification, or one of the key reasons driving this decision, is seen as the illegal migration or the influx of illegal migration. That is what the Tusk government has used to justify this decision. It isn't also unprecedented in itself. Germany has moved to reinstate border checks with Poland as early as October 2023, citing the same considerations. Now, when it comes to what these border checks might look like, the Minister of the Interior of Polish, Tomasz Siemoniak, has laid out some of the key considerations in place. Let's take a look and let's take a listen to what he had to say on the subject matter just a few hours prior to the border controls kicking in.
Przygotowania objęły 52.
Preparations covered 52 border crossing points on the western border and 13 points on the border with Lithuania. 800 border guard officers, 300 police officers, 200 military police, and 500 territorial defense soldiers are fully prepared to begin operations from midnight. As we announced, this decision was made to combat illegal migration and is not directed against Polish citizens or citizens of other European Union countries.
Now, though these security considerations is something that has been repeatedly undermined and underlined by the government, it is also not necessarily true in itself. It's oftentimes seen as being propelled by the right-wing nationalist groups. This includes the border defense movement, the representatives of which have gathered in the border areas alongside the Polish-German border and are basically trying to catch out anyone who is perceived as being a foreigner. They've also underlined that the influx of migration has swept through the Polish borderlands. However, when it comes to the perception, or rather the threat perception of the local populations and what their lived-in experiences is like, it appears to be slightly different to what is being presented by these right-wing nationalists. Let's take a look to what let's take a listen to what some of them had to say on the subject matter as well.
Nothing really threatens us, and we wouldn't want to be divided here. Let's connect, not divide, right?
The city, the entrepreneurs, they're really losing out. These lines, all of it, it's practically impossible to live in this city. It's very burdensome.
These controls aren't needed at all.
Why not?
Because they obstruct traffic.
There needs to be control, fine, then let there be border guards and police. But those men in those vests, labeled Border Defense Movement, those men don't have authority. Those men are overstepping the responsibilities of the border guard.
Now, as you've just heard, majority of the threats are maybe slightly overstated. However, what is not overstated is the perceived disadvantages which are expected to take effect following the border checks being reinstated. This includes the restrictions for the freedom of movement, particularly for the people who work in the border areas in Germany or commute to work every day. Additionally, the economic disadvantages are also expected, but all of this is to be perceived as the 30-day checks take effect at midnight. We will be here tomorrow to see the immediate aftermath and the fallout of what happens once the border controls are reinstated. But for now, it's back to you in the studio.
And Susanna, I mean, those border controls do come into effect in just a mere few hours at midnight tonight. Thank you so much, Susanna Jurek, reporting to us from the Polish-German border. U.S. President Donald Trump's patience with Russian President Putin may be running out. After weeks of holding back on tougher measures, the U.S. leader is now signaling a shift. Now, this comes as another Russian missile and drone attack left 6 people dead across the country on Sunday. Is Trump slowly changing course on the war in Ukraine? Konrad Gorlinski has the story.
Well, despite meetings, talks, and phone calls, it's looking quite clear that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not interested in any sort of deal or ceasefire. Since U.S. President Donald Trump's phone call with Vladimir Putin on Thursday, Russian attacks on Ukraine have only intensified.
I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy.
Overnight Sunday, Russia hit targets all across Ukraine, but this time, Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv was hardest hit. Attacks have also been reported in Kyiv, Kremenchuk, Zaporizhia, and the port of Mykolaiv, among others. Thus far, local authorities confirmed that 6 civilians have been killed and dozens injured in Sunday's attacks.
Look, I think the bottom line is that Trump is losing patience. He's been belittled. He's been humiliated by Putin. Putin has made a mockery of him by continuing to step up attacks, not reduce them, and not really take America's warnings into account.
Pass it to the sun.
Now, in hopes of a deal, Trump had previously resisted European pressure and advice from his own Republican Party to step up sanctions on Russia. But this bubble seems to have finally burst.
But these are pretty binding sanctions. Now, we talk about sanctions a lot, and he understands that it may be coming.
Most agree that it's about time Trump changed his tune on the war in Ukraine.
Sanctions by the Americans against the Russians is long overdue. I mean, he unleashed a boatload of sanctions against every country in the world except Russia. And, you know, he's got to do that. The second thing is that, the Europeans also have to get their act together.
How are you?
And the Europeans are taking advantage of this window that's just opened up. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz immediately picked up the phone and called Trump directly as early as Friday.
The Chancellor of Germany, Merz, who, in response to the fact to rumors that the Americans were pausing shipments of weapons to Ukraine, said to Trump, "We will pay for U.S. weapons to go to Ukraine."
Now, this would include Patriot air defense systems, which Ukraine desperately needs right now to defend against the onslaught of missile attacks. Asked about the Patriots, Trump seemed very positive.
Well, they need them for defense. I mean, I don't want to see people killed. And he says they're going to need them for defense. They're amazingly effective.
Rumors that the U.S. might back out entirely from the war are now subsiding. Even if America continues to stay somewhat on the sidelines, there's now hope that its support will become more consistent. And even if they don't supply everything themselves, they'll make it possible for Ukraine's European allies, and not just Germany, to play their part.
We may have turned a corner. I think that is the hope in Kyiv.
So far, the only tangible results from Trump's peace deals have been the prisoner exchanges, which were agreed to by Ukraine and Russia back in June. Now, this weekend saw the 8th stage of these swaps. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed on Sunday that all those returned are in good health. Most of the prisoners had been in captivity since 2022. For TVP World, I'm Conrad Gorlinski.
More from Ukraine now. While Ukrainian soldiers are training for real-world combat in a virtual space. From firing mock weapons to simulating missions, this tech-driven shift is saving resources while sharpening skills. But can it truly match battlefield conditions? Sergei Ivanov and Anastasia Yanchenko report on the future of military preparation.
The full-scale war has drastically changed Ukraine's military. Now even a small room like this can replace a 100-square-kilometer military training ground.
Today, I shot in night mode with a thermal scope. It's so hard.
Sergei has been serving in a mobile air defense group for 2.5 years. He says real training on shooting grounds is rare because today, every bullet could be used on the front lines. But in the virtual world, you can hit enemy targets without limits. However, even such a powerful virtual breakthrough cannot fully replace the real battlefield.
There's adrenaline there. Here, it's just radios. There, they shoot. There are explosions. The feeling is totally different. Here, it's calm. There, you feel the responsibility.
The creator of this virtual ground, Ihor Belov, says the system is not just effective, but also saves a lot of money.
The simulator pays for itself sometimes after just one shot, or even half a shot, especially with heavy weapons. And it's not only about the cost per shot. We must count logistics and the risk of gathering many soldiers in one place.
The virtual training base was created in 2018, but only after the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 did it become essential for Ukraine's military forces. Since then, it's been developing along with the army's needs.
Now, the situation on the battlefield is very dynamic. What we trained for yesterday might not be relevant tomorrow. Just yesterday, we trained for Shaheds flying at 400 to 500 meters. Today, that's not relevant. Now, they come at 2,000 to 3,000 meters. We can simulate a real mission in virtual space so that soldiers can later perform it in real combat.
The developer's next goal is to create more virtual simulators, including those for complex military systems and artillery.
On Saturday, Elon Musk shook up U.S. politics by announcing the launch of his new political endeavor, the America Party, promising to give Americans their freedom back. Now, the move comes just a day after U.S. President Trump signed his sweeping tax cut and spending bill into law on Friday, a legislation Musk openly slammed. Now, what can we expect from this new development? Alex Sumlinsky takes a closer look.
Tech mogul Elon Musk, who just months ago appeared as the U.S. president's right-hand man in the Oval Office, has gone from friend...
A star is born, Elon.
...to foe.
But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
After a dramatic fallout between the two. When asked if he would deport Musk, this is what the U.S. president had to say.
I don't know. I think we'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?
Terrible as it may sound, Musk, for the time being, is preoccupied with creating a political party of his own. A day after asking his followers on his X platform whether a new U.S. political party should be created, Musk declared in a post on Saturday,
Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom.
Specifics of the new party remain unknown. But Musk's move is seen as an attempt to pressure Trump and his Republican Party ahead of next year's midterm election.
These are, huge operations, and it has to be done on a relatively short time frame if Musk wants to influence the 2026 congressional, what we call the midterm elections.
Despite hailing from South Africa and growing up in North America, one of the world's richest men has not shied away from intervening in the domestic politics of European countries, as well as attacking the EU itself.
Let's be clear, Elon Musk interfered in European politics and in potentially European elections and even up to the point of what I would call the overthrow of governments. There is the messages that were sent out supporting the far right, AfD in Germany. There was him even, interviewing the party leader, Elisa Weidel, in this big intervention to promote her. There has been support for Marine Le Pen in France.
The reason for his and Donald Trump's falling out was the sharp increase in the government debt due to Trump's recent legislation and a cutback in support for renewable energies. So, Musk may be taking a break from meddling in Europe's affairs and elections for some time.
Fight, fight, fight!
The Polish municipality of Walce has won a lawsuit against the Polish government over funding cuts to German minority language education. Now, 3 municipalities with significant native German populations are now set to receive compensation from the Ministry of Education following a 2022 decision that reduced support for German language lessons in primary schools. Ovidiusz Nicea reports.
A Warsaw court ruled that Walce, located in the Opole region, is entitled to financial compensation from the Education Ministry.
We received the verdict of the district court in Warsaw with great satisfaction. We somewhat counted on such justice.
This is the 3rd such decision in recent times. The municipalities of Ozimek and Chrząstowice have also won their cases against the Polish state. The verdicts, which are not final yet, concern teaching German as an ethnic minority language and who should pay for these lessons.
The decision has confirmed our conviction that we were right.
When in 2022 the then government in Warsaw reduced funding for the lessons from 3 hours per week to 1, these municipalities decided to continue teaching the full 3 hours and funded the extra 2 themselves.
There was no objection here to allocating our municipal funds for these 2 hours of language courses because we didn't want our children to feel that they were being discriminated against. And only later did we think that we simply had to fight this discriminatory decision. After all, why should the municipality bear the costs when it was the state's responsibility?
The previous conservative government allocated fewer funds for teaching German to the minority, citing a lack of reciprocity in Polish-German relations.
It cannot continue like this. In Poland, we paid 236 million zloty for the German minority and the German language. And in Germany, where there are 2.2 million Poles, the federal government does not allocate a single euro for the Polish minority. Enough is enough.
Representatives of the minority, however, say that the premise of that decision was flawed.
Across Europe, there is a distinction, which is also legally regulated, between autochthonous minorities and immigrant groups. In Poland, the Germans are an autochthonous minority.
The current government seems to agree. After taking office, the new education minister reinstated funding for 3 hours of weekly German classes for the minority. According to the 2021 census, more than 144,000 people in Poland declared German nationality. Most of them live in Upper Silesia, which is spread across the Silesia and Opole regions. In the latter, the German minority constitutes over 6% of the population. Most people of German origin in the region are descendants of those who, despite the area's changed sovereignty following World War II, stayed and retained their unique identity against all odds.
As Silesians, we have a very strong attachment to our land and history, and we simply love this place. This is why I became mayor, because I love this area and my municipality, and we are proud of our history. It may not have been easy, but it is ours, and we are proud of it.
And that's something that the locals wish to pass on to the next generations. That's why they see the region-specific education, including the German lessons, as so important. Ovidiusz Nicea, TVP World.
And now back to our top story this evening. In just a few hours, beginning midnight tonight, Poland is temporarily reinstating border controls along its border with Germany and Lithuania. Now, the announcement made by Polish Premier Donald Tusk earlier this week comes just as several other EU countries have also brought back frontier checks in response to growing concerns over illegal migration. Now, the move is showing the growing political pressure across Europe that's testing the foundations of the Schengen passport-free travel zone. And joining me now in studio to discuss these latest developments, I'm happy to welcome Jovanka Jakubek-Lalik, Associate Professor at the Faculty of Law and Administration at the University of Warsaw. Thank you so much for being with us here this evening.
Thank you.
So Ivanka, I mean, this debate over migration here in Poland has increasingly become quite heated, and particularly today. Now, what can we expect here in Poland what do you think will unfold in the next 24 hours? How long do you think will this law really stay in place? What will the nature of these checks be? And of course, mainly, who do you think will be impacted and affected most by these border controls?
Well, the government says that this restored border checks should not be really problematic for the people who are crossing the border. Indeed, not all of them will be controlled. It's just going to be some examples of cars or people crossing the border who are going to be checked by the border guards. However, it is indeed a significant decision of the government to reinstall these border checks. This is the third time in our Schengen membership history that the government decides to reinstall these border checks. First one was when huge Euro championships in football were happening in 2012. Second time when COVID pandemic hit European countries, and this is the third time. So currently the border checks are going to be reinstalled for 1 month, for the duration of 1 month. However, they could be prolonged.
But what do you think really that prompted the government to push this decision? I mean, if I can just ask you this, I mean, Polish President-elect Karol Nawrocki claimed that Donald Tusk is responsible for conflicts between national activists that are patrolling the Polish-German border and officers of the border guard, pointing to the government's lack of action. Protests have since also erupted that we've seen in the past few days. Now, do you think that pressure influenced the government to take this decision?
Well, there are external and internal factors that combined to this decision. External factors are for sure that Germany resumed border controls in 2023 in October. So it's already almost 2 years that Germany has reinstated these border controls. And that was actually a unilateral decision of the German government to reinstall the government checks on all of their borders. So also on the Polish border. So we can say that this is reciprocal decision. But on the other hand, there is indeed an internal pressure coming from the opposition, especially far right-wing parties. And some of them, especially the right-wing activists, as we can call them, they formed some kind of citizens' militias on the Polish-German border, and this is actually a very dangerous phenomenon because these kind of groups, they do not have any position to control the people who are crossing the border. Also, the border guards claim that actually they produce a lot of chaos on the border and they are not helping the border guards. It's just the opposite. So the government should really take control of the situation and make sure that these activists are not fulfilling those kind of tasks, because this is not their job. They should not take care of safety and security issues. This is the job of the Polish border control guards and also Polish police and other also services that should be responsible for this kind of competences.
Let me ask you this. Kaczynski held a press conference on the German border today. He said, quote, "We don't know whether these will be checks against those who are being illegally smuggled here or against those who are resisting it." What's your take on it?
Well, first of all, we should consider the numbers, because this whole debate looks like there are, numerous people coming from Germany to Poland and crossing the border illegally, which is not the case. There are really not a lot of instances of people who are returned from Germany to Poland because apparently they entered the Schengen area, the Schengen zone from the eastern border, so probably from Belarus, or currently also there is concern that from Lithuania, so from the Baltic countries. But these are not really numerous cases, and the whole debate says saying that there is a huge problem because there are a lot of people who are coming back from Germany to Poland, who are returned from Germany to Poland. This is absolutely not the case. The cases are not significant in their numbers. So what needs to happen is, first of all, improved cooperation between Poland and Germany, between the governments, between the border guards. And also what needs to happen is proper information to the public so that the numbers are really low, they are not significant, and also that the Polish government is really in control of the situation in spite of what the far-right activists are claiming.
You did just mention a cooperation there between Poland and Germany. I mean, I did want to ask you that as our last question, but let me ask you this now. Then, how can Poland, you think, secure its borders without undermining Schengen principles? I mean, you're talking about cooperation. I mean, but how to do it properly?
Well, of course, Poland and the government and the border guards are responsible for protection of the borders. So this is one of the core competences of every government. However, what we can see currently is that there is, let's say, a common sentiment in European Union countries when it comes to securing the borders, especially migration is triggering some of the security concerns. Currently, it's 11 out of 29 Schengen members who reinstalled the controls. So this is really a significant number of countries who decided to do that. And this is really concerning because Schengen is one of the biggest developments and biggest achievements of the European Union. And this is something that, especially for Polish citizens who are old enough to remember how it was problematic to cross the border 30 years ago, it's a totally different world that we currently live. And it's really damaging for also the people's, let's say, thinking of the freedom of movement in the European Union, that the increasing number of countries are deciding to reinstall this kind of border checks.
So what do you personally make out of it? I mean, who do you think is going to be really impacted the most?
Well, practically, who will be impacted will be the people who are going to be crossing the border traveling, because what we can expect is that they will be slower in crossing the border because some of them might be subjected to control on the border. But on the long run, I think what needs to happen is increased and improved cooperation on the European Union level and between the national governments of EU member states, because the security concerns are common. They are joined by all of them, all of the countries, all of the EU member states. So all of them should work together to secure the external borders in the first place of the European Union, and then work together also when it comes to proper treatment of the people who are coming to the European Union, and also protection of their rights. This is something that is really important that we need to take care of.
You did mention Belarus right at the beginning of our conversation. Let me tell you this. Polish Internal Affairs Minister Tomasz Siemionak said that these checks are actually responding to hybrid threats from Belarus and from Russia. What kind of hybrid threats are we talking about?
Indeed, for the last several years, Belarus, together with Russia, they are attracting migrants from different countries, some of them from African countries, from Middle Eastern countries, from Asian countries, who are then taken to the Polish border and made or even forced to illegally cross the Polish border. So this is indeed a security threat to
forced
to Poland.
To illegally cross the border.
Yes, it's often the case because the Belarusian guards are forcing them. Actually, they are either leaving them on the border or they are even forcing them to cross the border. So this is indeed a hybrid threat because there is a limited possibility, limited capacity even to find out who those people are in some of the cases. So there is a pressure from the side of the Belarus, and this pressure is challenging in many aspects. So first of all, there is this security aspect, but other aspect is the human rights of the people, because they are human beings and we should treat them in accordance with the international law and the treaties that Poland is part of.
Ivanka, and it's very interesting how all this will unfold, especially in the next 24 hours. We also do have a reporter who's on the ground who will also be there to let us know how all this will change. And I guess the next 30 days, like you said, will give us possibly results and to see how the government responds to it. Then thank you so much, Ivanka, for being with us here today on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for this edition of World News Tonight here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching and stay with us for more news, features, and commentary.